to come away from you for the moment. We've got an interpreter standing by who is going to tell us what the President is saying. Let's go there live and hear the State of the Nation address from the Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Сегодняшнее послание сосредоточено прежде всего на вопросах нашего
I'm going to deliver the State of the Nation address. Firstly, I want to focus on domestic issues, particularly social and economic problems. Especially, I want to draw your attention to the fact that last year, in my address, I have proposed a lot of national initiatives. Those still remain our priorities in order to meet the expectations of our common people, particularly such people-orientedness and the aim to improve people's living standard. Only with rapid growth of the nation can we guarantee all of those targets to be met, and also those tasks are long-term targets. We also have some short-term objectives. I've mentioned them repeatedly, and you're quite clear about those objectives. In the near future, we remember the imperative to realize those targets. We also have equipped us with certain measures to deliver those targets. We cannot take a step back. Instead, we must bring some tangible results about those detailed targets. I know it's a daunting task. We're well aware, but we know we need to put more efforts into those, and it requires change. We can only keep moving forward and keep improving our efficiency and speed in delivering those commitments. Also, we must keep improving our sense of responsibility. After all, we are facing a lot of difficulties, and there are a lot of uncertainties and factors, and something that we are not accustomed to.
Кроме того, не обманешь, они остро чувствуют лицемерие, неуважение к себе и любую несправедливость. Их мало интересует бюрократическая.
The Russian people are quite sensitive, in particular in pursuit of justice, fairness, particularly what the government has done, whether their living standard has been indeed improved. They are quite sensitive to the results, and we cannot repeat our mistakes in the past dozens of years. In the communist years, we have made certain detours and mistakes, and we cannot repeat them. And this requires our government to accomplish our tasks and responsibilities. I hereby emphasize that our plan doesn't just belong to the nation or certain department. It's for all and requires all units in our federal government and local governments to honor our commitments. We must also have a breakdown of our tasks, and we must unite together. To that end, that is a very grand objective for our national development. And to that end, we have to give a lot of resources and inputs. Those are not going to be given by others. It requires our millions of common people to stand on the same front, and we must mobilize our internal resources and rely on our own forces to deliver. We all want to see tangible improvements of our daily lives, and we hope that by the time next year we can generate some initial results. Particularly the different levels of our administrative departments must have some improvements. Ladies and gentlemen, all the tasks in front of us are detailed ones. They are key to people's concerns. They are supportive of every family. For us nation with multiple ethnicities, our families and our descendants must carry on, and that is the key to our heart. That's why we have made a lot of efforts, and we will keep improving the value of families. And this also belongs to the job of the future for our nation, for our society and organizations, as well as the media groups. That is the core thing. Russia now has entered a very crucial moment for ethnicities. I once said there are a lot of objective conditions, and we have also sacrificed. We have sacrificed a lot during the collapse of the Soviet Union. We must consider all of those sacrifices, and we must look forward into the future and keep develop ourselves. In the early 21st century, we still bumped into certain problems, but we keep up the good job to improve the status quo. I hope in the future we're going to see the rising of our population, and such population growth is crucial for our values. We also must work on the children's education as well as the reduction of the poverty ratio. We also must encourage the growth of the birth rate for both one child and the second child. And we must also offer maternity fund for those families with a second child. In some specific regions, we also have some other additional subsidies. Such assistance level is on the rise over the years. For example, every child can be eligible for 1,000 rubles per month, and such maternity payment must be raised to be 1.5 times of our income level. We also hope to keep raising that ratio to 2 times. We have such demand, and our people are looking forward to that rise. My presidential office have given me such information, so we will work on it to benefit more families, particularly families with multiple children, to get such subsidies. For the families with over one child, I guarantee them to get more help. For the disabled people, our current subsidies is very low. I hope to raise that subsidy to about 10,000 rubles. That is still not enough, but still, such a measure means a lot for the disabled people, particularly the disabled children and their families. The fertility ratio must be increased. That is a very comprehensive task for us. We also must guarantee some achievements in that front. The taxation ratio for the families must be lowered. With such target, our principle is that the more children you give birth to, the less taxation you will have to pay. We must improve such incentives to those families.
Для примера, что это значит. Сейчас налогом не облагаются 20 метров площади квартиры. Если в семье трое детей, то из
the housing of those families with more children must also be supported with better incentives. In addition, for families with over one child, we must help them in terms of the area of the housing. I also want to draw your attention to the fact that we have already begun our help of the retired people. We paid attention to the retirees, and we have certain incentives and preferential treatment. Such treatment is a national level policy. Our pension has been increased, and for families with more than one child, we offer more assistance. In May, I raised certain measures in my presidential tenure. Since last year, for the families with small children, we also proposed to offer certain assistance in terms of the mortgage. But now only 4,500 houses have accessed such assistance. Why a large quantity of others are not receiving such benefits? We know the reasons. When receiving the loans, many families are already starting to repay the loans. Now, in many countries alike, most investment can only last for about 1 to 3 years in terms of their repayment. But now we want to extend such incentive to cover the entire term of their credit. So when repaying the mortgage loan for their houses, they can get more helps. It will benefit about 600,000 families. With so many families in need of such help of mortgage, that is a very crucial task for us all. Considering the stability of our macroeconomy and our sustainable development, as well as the income growth, we will further consider improving the families with over 3 children, particularly 3 to 4 children. We will offer some special help. We will offer 450,000 subsidies in terms of their housing mortgage for those families. And since 2019, such disbursement is in place. We also put it in our national budget for 2019. We also have a foundation, maternal foundation, added. That sum will be increased to over 900,000. I would love to alert our government officials and our parliament members to the fact that in 2019, to realize those tasks, we need further foundation support at about 26 billion rubles. That is a large sum of money, of course, but we must make full utilization of that pool. We also believe that such a sum of money must not only help the families to buy houses, we must also help those families to build houses by themselves. We can offer some financing measures to improve those households' living conditions. For example, including the mortgage loans measures. For taxation of those households, we must consider the market value of the apartments. The taxation for buying an apartment must be clarified to fully consider the market value of the house and also the value of that piece of land. For some construction and real estate companies, when they are developing those houses, they must also pay some fees and taxations for operation in the past, but now we are considering to cancel such taxation and encourage the developers to develop more affordable housing. We also encourage those developers to build some social utilities like hospitals or stadiums. For those developers, their taxation will be lowered. Before 2021, we also aim to solve the issue of the nurseries. We will add another 270,000 nurseries, to accept more orphans and children. And we also must offer such a central and local financial support from the government. Of course, our national subsidies go larger than that pool. All of those issues are quite important. We must solve them all at once. We don't need further delay in terms of the procedure. In some places, they have very backward conditions with less automation. So for some families, if they can choose to send their children to the nurseries through an automated procedure, that is better. I sincerely want to encourage better development of automation system. And also I want to draw the attention of our government officials to find the best solution to those families in order to have better choices. Population issue is also central. For example, improving fertility ratio and decreasing the mortality ratio. That is another significant task on us. I still realize that we are living with a lot of people living below the poverty line. Previously, we lowered that number to 15 million population, but now it rebounds to about 40 million people. So, for households with low income level, we need to help them out. To offer their basic necessities, including living condition, the wearings, and the drugs. For the retirees, including the disabled people and the lonely elderly people, we also must offer more care. We also must help those jobless people to improve their skills to find another job. So the problems linger on. As we know, if one doesn't have a job, they will lose hope about living. So we must offer help to those jobless people. In certain regions like Lushik, we have some special policies. With such mechanisms, such measures like social and livelihood contract can help those jobless people to have better skills. I also want to encourage those people to start up their own business.
Well, you've just had a brief taste of Vladimir Putin's annual State of the Nation address. He will be talking for, we think, around 2 hours, but we've just dipped into it there. Let's now speak to Sergei Sanakov. He's the head of the Russian-Chinese Analytical Center and a member of the Russian International Affairs Council. He joins me on the phone. Plenty there to get our teeth into, wasn't it? There were the usual crowd pleasers. He's going to do more for the disabled. He's going to do more for families, tax breaks for families, reduction of poverty, retirees. Also, what I thought was interesting was he was talking about encouraging people to have more children. He says that the population growth is essential. Did you find that a strange thing for him to say or not?
Good afternoon, China. Yes, maybe, but let me remind you that this is the 15th address for President Putin to the Federal Assembly. So, as we remember last time, President Putin used not only PPT, but also very militant tone in his address. Now I think he should better to focus his speech on the internal affairs in the situation within Russia. So So we hope that people expect more social policy. We expect how government is going to intend national projects in life, and certainly we think that the distribution of the national growth product will be more fair. This is most main issues which people are expecting from this address.
Well, he certainly has been delivering plenty of these measures. You know, poverty reduction was a big thing that he talked about. But has he done enough, do you think, to reverse his gradual decline in approval ratings? He's now down to 40%.
Will you be so kind to repeat the question?
Yes. Many of the things in his speech were designed to please the crowd. For instance, poverty alleviation. Do you think he's done enough now to make more people vote for him, given that 40% of Russians, only 40% of Russians said they would vote for him in the future?
Well, I have just described what is the expectation of people, and if they will see not only in speech and not only verbal from President Putin, but also in action of the government, if they see that this is some changes into more fair and social policy, then certainly the rating of Putin will be higher. But if we will see the same as what happened in October of last year, why it was so small, because I remind you that that was the situation in the payments for old people, and certainly it was not the best solutions for our country. Hope we will change our policy for more social.
Okay, for now, thank you very much indeed for that, Sergei Sanakoff on the phone there, for that summary of President Putin's speech. That's it from me for now, from all of us here at CGTN. As ever, thank you for your company.
Решать насущные проблемы граждан, конечно же, должны соответствовать самым строгим профессиональным требованиям. Я думаю, что в основном так оно и есть. Конечно, это очень сложная работа. Мы с вами понимаем, работа с людьми каждый день, с утра до вечера – это сложная судьба на самом деле. Но если уж пришел, то надо понимать, что не менее важно чувствовать, понимать людей, сопереживать им, знать их заботы и тревоги. И тем более никогда не допускать высокомерного отношения, неуважения к гражданам ни в словах, ни в действиях. Я прошу помнить об этом всегда. Уважаемые коллеги, следующая важная тема – здравоохранение. Знаю, что его нынешнее состояние, уровень доступности медицинской помощи, он, с одной стороны, вроде как растет, и действительно растет, но, тем не менее, многих граждан не устраивает. И понятно, с чем это связано. Ведь об этой системе, как правило, судят по первичному звену, поликлиникам, амбулаториям, фельдшерским, акушерским пунктам. Именно к их работе у людей больше всего претензий. Зачастую к нужному специалисту многодневная очередь. Невозможно быстро и бесплатно пройти необходимое обследование. А в отдаленных населенных пунктах остается проблема даже попасть к медицинскому работнику, просто попасть на прием. Да, число фельдшерско-акушерских пунктов и мобильных медицинских комплексов растет. Однако там, где их до сих пор нет, человеку от общих средних цифр не легче. До конца 2020 года медицинская помощь должна стать доступной во всех, я хочу это подчеркнуть, именно во всех, без исключения, населенных пунктах России. Для всех граждан, где бы они ни жили. Так, для справки хочу сказать, что уже за 19 и 20 годы должно быть построено, и, надеюсь, будет построено и модернизировано еще 1590 врачебных амбулаторий и фельдшерских пунктов. Сейчас в ряде регионов реализуется проект «Бережливая поликлиника». В результате время ожидания сокращается в 3-4 раза. Я был в таких поликлиниках.
这方面的工作呢，目前已经有所开展，
Очень хорошо.
应该说开展
Гораздо лучшие условия создаются для людей с ограниченными возможностями, для родителей с детьми. Но таких поликлиник, к сожалению, пока очень мало. Они скорее исключение, чем правило по стране в среднем. С учетом лучших региональных практик, а они, повторяю, есть, поручаю правительству уже в этом году утвердить высокие стандарты бережливых поликлиник, принять правила их аттестации, а в следующем году совместно с регионами внедрить механизмы, которые мотивируют управленческий и медицинский персонал повышать качество работы. И в первую очередь уже в 2021 году нужно полностью перевести на новые стандарты все детские поликлиники. Обращаю внимание, дело не в том, чтобы появилась вывеска «бережливая поликлиника». Главное, чтобы люди наконец почувствовали уважительное, по-настоящему бережное отношение к себе, к своему здоровью со стороны государства. На повышение доступности медицинской помощи должна работать информатизация здравоохранения. В течение 3 лет надо отладить электронное взаимодействие между медицинскими учреждениями, аптеками, врачами и пациентами. Добавлю, обязательно нужно включить в общую цифровую сеть и организацию медико-социальной экспертизы, тем самым избавить, наконец, пожилых людей, инвалидов, семьи с детьми от очередей и сбора бессмысленных подчас справок. Острый вопрос для первичного звена здравоохранения – это дефицит кадров. Здесь надо, наряду с комплексным развитием медицинского образования, нужны меры, которые дадут быстрый результат, быстрый эффект. В этой связи предлагаю снять участников программы «Земский доктор».
We also have the policies of barefoot doctors. We must cultivate more such barefoot doctors in different localities.
При переезде на работу в сельскую местность или малый город. Врачи – 1 000 000 рублей, фельдшеры – 500.
We must encourage doctors to work in the grassroots level, in the remote areas, in the poverty-stricken areas, with better subsidies.
Операции, используя новейшее оборудование, успешно делаются не только в федеральном.
We are also improving the modernization level of those facilities, like hospitals.
У нас просто не было никакой такой системы, но нужно
We lack very well-developed mechanisms in that regard, and we have more job to do.
детских реабилитационных центров мирового уровня, так же как мы делаем по
We must now build at least 2 such rehabilitation centers with modernized facilities. And for tumors, we must offer better treatment.
1 триллиона рублей.
We will invest at least 1 trillion rubles to support the treatment of the patients with tumors.
Своевременного, эффективного и доступного лечения. А внедрение
For those patients with tumors, we must offer instant care
заставляет отступить эту опасную болезнь.
to minimize the catastrophes caused by such disastrous diseases.
Формах рака более 90% излечиваются. Еще сравнительно
For now,
в середине 90-х
almost
годов
80% of those diseases have been controlled.
20% заболевших детей. В России тогда
And also in Russia,
ни возможностей. Во многих
we
случаях
have effective technologies and equipment
кто мог, тот обращался.
to support those hospitals. So we must reverse the situation in those hospitals, particularly children with cancer and tumors.
Работали очень активно с нашими друзьями из-за границы. Некоторые вот врачи из Германии просто переехали в Москву.
We are also working with international partners, for example, experts in Germany, to offer us support
Продолжать эту работу, чтобы кардинально
in order to fundamentally change our situation in the medical services for
У
tumors.
нас создана фактически восстановлена система диспансеризации и регулярных профилактических осмотров. Они должны включать обследование на онкологические заболевания. Подчеркну, в обязательном порядке.
For such diseases, we must keep improving the screening process, treatment process. We are also developing the distant medical care system to offer more tools.
Далее. Уже в ближайшие годы мы должны сформировать ряд новых направлений на стыке здравоохранения и социального обслуживания.
We are also improving
Надо в корне
the
изменить систему помощи
social
людям,
services,
нуждающимся в долговременном уходе и в стационаре, и
particularly for low-income
потребности
households.
конкретной семьи.
Our help targets at every household and every family member
Привлечь патронажную службу, сиделку, а где-то
to
обучить
solve those
родственников
most
медицинским
frequently
и
seen
иным
problems.
Отработка этих индивидуальных принципов поддержки в прошлом году началась в Волгоградской, Костромской, Новгородской, Псковской, Рязанской и Тульской областях. За 4
certain
года
states,
нужно внедрить по
We
всей
have
стране.
taken measures.
Важнейший вопрос,
We
который
have
меняет не только
accumulated certain
медицинское, но и
experience in those
социальное,
states, and such
общественное,
experience must be
нравственное
magnified in different
измерение. Это
places.
организация
And
паллиативной
we
помощи.
also
По
highlight
оценкам,
the
в ней
principles
нуждается
of
до
fairness and
800
justice
тысяч человек.
to spread the
А вот,
benefits to all
волонтерам
states.
я говорил, может,
We
умеренно.
also encourage
Недавно я
volunteers
посещал,
to
как вы знаете, детский
dive
хоспис в
into
Петербурге.
such work.
Говорили о проблемах. Знаю, что вчера депутаты Государственной Думы
They
во
can
втором
also
чтении
deliver
приняли
more
поправки в
messages to
законодательство о
us.
паллиативной помощи. Прошу как можно быстрее
Those
завершить
people
работу
need
над
our
этим
help.
законопроектом в
I
целом.
hope in terms of
В дальнейшем
legislation
посмотрим,
we
как он
can
действует на практике,
better
и при необходимости
identify
оперативно
this
внесем
problem to
коррективы,
improve the
обязательно
situation.
учитывая
If
позицию
there are
волонтеров, о
certain
которых я только
mistakes,
что
we
упоминал,
can
врачей,
correct them.
социальных работников, представителей
For volunteers, we
общественных
want
и
to improve
религиозных
their status
объединений.
in the whole
Напомню,
procedure, as well
всех,
as
кто давно
improve the coordination between different players like volunteers and doctors.
уважаемые коллеги, люди предъявляют все больше.
We also want to offer more primary healthcare services to the common people.
И, пожалуй, самая болезненная
Now let's
тема
look at the
ситуации
environmental
коммунальных
issues,
отходов. Если вы помните, в
particularly the garbages
на
on a daily basis.
Да, так называемые
Some local people once offered such suggestions to me.
То есть никогда на самом деле не занимались. Многие полигоны
Some of those household wastes may be staying there for hundreds of years, and they keep piling up.
хлама вблизи жилых кварталов.
Such piles of waste get larger and larger and finally could encircle the entire neighborhood. So solving such waste problem is very crucial.
Кто об этом подумал? Должны были подумать.
We must consider solving this problem.
Делает вид, что ничего не
It
происходит.
requires different levels of government to respond to the need of people and take it as a very important priority.
Но эти трудные вопросы
We know that
обязательно
those
решать.
difficult problems must be eradicated.
С этого года регионы
Since
начали
this year,
переходить на
we
новую
will
систему
also
обращения с твердыми коммунальными
take some new measures
отходами.
to
Если всё сведётся к
solve the
тому, что
problem of
плата за
household
вывоз
waste.
мусора — это не работа, а профанация. Люди должны видеть, за что они платят немалые деньги.
We must see some tangible results.
Нужно навести порядок в этой сфере, избавиться
Particularly for the public services that our common people must pay, they must be improved.
сваливая мусор где и как придётся.
We must introduce the marketized measures to solve those problems.
Их переработки и утилизации. Удивительно, но
For example, the recycling of the waste.
приходилось вмешиваться в некоторые вопросы. Несколько раз приходилось
Many of
говорить
those problems are entwined.
и прокуратуре. Знаете,
Our
еще раз хочу сказать. Но
different departments may get involved in such problems. Sometimes I was quite surprised,
потому что вот эти мутные так называемые конторы
including the Ministry of the Internal Affairs.
благосостояние не платят. И свой бизнес так называемый прикрывают. Я прошу общероссийского
So we must have a clear picture about the situation, and we also improve the supervision of our people.
их сигналы о любых нарушениях должны в обязательном
Any behaviors that violates our law must be highlighted, and we also must have specific solutions to those violations.
в черте городов. А за 6 лет и все остальные.
For example, the illegal construction in those places must be solved,
Не накапливать новые миллионы
and we must reduce the ratio of those waste yards with illegal construction to about 60% in order to offer a cleaner environment in the urban areas and better transportation conditions and living conditions for the urban residents.
заправок и
We can further upgrade the situation of those waste yards by turning those places into the sources of energy. This is not a simple task, and we must have very proactive attitude. We must do more research with better theories and technologies and higher standards. In 2018, we once proposed that we must improve the city development and build ecological cities. To accomplish that target, we must firstly, for the industries, enterprises must shoulder their responsibility. So I want to draw your attention to the fact that we must not only pay attention to the interests of those industries and enterprises, but also the interests of all people in Russia. That is also something mattering to the interest of all mankind. So the production of many industries is a problem that is at the heart of us all. Protecting and preserving the natural resources, especially those treasured natural resources, must be top priority. We are building some natural preserves. For example, in Altai region, we have established such natural reserves. But in some natural reserves, the boundaries have not been set, so we must speed up our work. We also must have some ecological remediation measures in place. Such utilization of natural resources must be filed at national level, and we also must encourage the ecological tourism. So we must take a holistic approach. Ladies and gentlemen, in our capital and some other metropolises, there are some university students who come from poor family background in the rural areas, and their number is on the rise. Those students know better about their hometown, and they can dive into their future job with that better knowledge about grassroots level. So we do hope to combine the theories with the practical work and invest more into education. In 2010, we have taken certain approaches to improve the living standards of the students in universities. But by 2018, we have made solid improvements. For example, the heating system. We have full coverage of the heating system. So local government officials must put high premium on those demands and find a solution. Particularly for the localities with less financial situation, we must pay special attention. Also in 2016, as we know, in the field of education, we had insufficiencies in terms of investment, but now we have upgraded technologies and more specified tasks. In the past, some schools cannot even have access to internet, but in the next few years, we plan to equip those primary and secondary schools with internet systems. According to our plan, we will improve the speed of the internet by about 400 times to about 50 to 400 gigabytes. We will also take certain actions in the education sector. We are also working with some international players to convene some activities online together to better utilize the role of the Internet. So we must cultivate more talents in that regard. Like I said, the cultivation of barefoot doctors and the medical practitioners in the field of oncology. All of those measures are closely linked with education, and we will keep allocating money from our national budget into those fields. We also will encourage those talents to go to the grassroots level and the rural areas for educational improvement. We will offer subsidies to those people. In certain places, like Jivasto, they've already taken certain actions. For example, they have the opera houses, they have museums, so they can generate more cultural education. And we must improve the cultural level in different cities. We will also intensify our support to certain localities in holding such cultural events. After all, cultural heritages are very important for our people. Our government officials will also allocate some money to encourage such cultural activities. For example, we will allocate about 17 million rubles to build the Center of Cultural Activities or the classrooms of cultural activities. In some smaller cities, we will also develop the cultural development centers. As I already mentioned, since January 1st, 2020, many medical institutions will not pay such taxation to us. For the opera houses and museums, they will also be exempted from paying such a revenue taxation. We will also improve the income level of the personnel working in those facilities. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the localities, we must help them with social welfare and healthcare and their economic conditions. That is a very important task. Distinguished guests and comrades, every time we meet, we will talk about those above-mentioned issues. We have about 4,000 people living on our national fiscal budget, including the civil servants, educational personnel, and medical personnel, so we must improve their income level. And also for industries, agriculture sector, and the tertiary industry, as well as SMEs, we also must raise their payrolls. All of those will be quite connected with the national development. We must offer freedom to those enterprises and improve the employment situation. In some newly emerging fields, the salaries must also be increased. They will be beneficial to our national economic growth, for example, to the task of eradicating poverty and improving people's living standard. In the future, our GDP growth will be growing at about 3%. And inflation ratio must be well controlled. to guarantee the implementation of certain projects and our national plan. Those would be preconditions. We also ask our government to control the inflation situation and pay more attention to the macro stability. I can also tell you that our international reserve can cover our international debt. That is the first time that we've come to this level. And also, our GDP level is also enlarging, and our government fiscal revenues are also increasing. So all of those are testimonies of our improved situation. And it is very important for maintaining macro stability. To that end, we've taken a series of measures. In particular, last year, our National Reserve Foundation has been better developed. Our productivity has been raising, and we have introduced more innovative technologies. For some non-natural resource products, our exports have been doubled last year. Also, the business environment is improved. Our legal environment is improved as well. And we aim to keep 6 to 7% of growth ratio in those regards. And secondly, we want to develop our infrastructure to release the potential of different localities. In particular, we must cultivate the local cages and develop the local research and technology levels. For now, in Russia, for those high-tech products, we are having higher demands, and of course, the offering of those high technologies are on the rise. Those would be huge opportunities. For our manufacturing sector and other industries, they are facing more new opportunities as well. In the fields of healthcare, telecommunications, and housing, transportation, the emerging opportunities are surfacing. They value at about 60 billion rubles. Including some of us sitting here who are from the state-owned enterprises, you will be one of them. I hope you could have your competitive edge. You must offer more job opportunities for the common people to improve the employment situation and improve the competition field. So, with better preconditions, for example, the national purchasing, the SMEs could benefit. We must keep introducing some new technologies to improve the competitiveness of some products. We also must diversify our offering of products. Every year, we are not just presenting a set of data. We must implement those measures afterwards. For those production-based enterprises and service-oriented enterprises, they must be able to enlarge their production and scale up. We must set up good examples to encourage the development of those high-tech enterprises. For example, in the fields of big data, the robot manufacturing, and IoT, those industries must enjoy better environment of growth with increased standards. We hope that our parliament members could take more active measures to legalize those procedures in order to contribute to the development of such an environment, particularly those high technologies. All of those laws and regulations to be legalized must be based on our actual conditions, and they must be renewed according to the changes of the real situation. We are not just aiming at keeping pace, we are aiming at leading the way of technological development. We must improve our trade volume to guarantee innovation and creation. In 2018, our export of agricultural products was also leapfrogging. It was about $45 billion. We export about 4 to 5 million tons of agricultural products. They are indispensable from our efforts. For example, we are also improving the seeds of our agricultural products, like the seeds of wheat, and such achievement is inseparable from the technological innovation. They will help us to guarantee food security in Russia and also in the international market. It can also improve the living standards of the farmers living in the rural areas. So Russian government must have some new schemes while developing the energies. And in 2016, we have introduced such policies about agriculture and energy development. Russia has our natural advantages, that is, our abundant natural resources. So we must tap into this potential to develop some products concerning ecological safety and green development. We must build our own brand of green development. And we must encourage the development of high-quality products that will guarantee ecological health in international market. We can do that, and please have confidence in us. To accomplish all of those targets, we must further exchange our ideas and solve the current problems to eradicate the obstacles. For some illegal behaviors, we must crack down on them, whether they are criminal behaviors or the mild violations. We must lower the threshold of enterprises so that they can enjoy more freedom of growth in terms of the requirements of the laws. As we know, if one enterprise cannot guarantee full employment, this will be a hazard for the whole country. So, we must improve our standards in terms of corporate governance. For some actual situations, we must have personalized plans to guarantee the interests of those enterprises legally. And the violations could be penalized more effectively. Instead, we are not aiming at erecting more obstacles for those enterprises. We must improve the judicial procedure, for example, supervision procedure must be modernized. We know the enterprises are facing huge pressure of generating income, so we must offer helps. Particularly, the number of supervisors is on the rise, so we require the courts to offer their own solutions. In addition, for the members of enterprises and organizations, I encourage them to establish their digital platform so they can exchange their information and improve the efficiency. And also they can meet the demands of each other to reduce the cost of supervision and inspection. I do hope that our law enforcement agencies should not take a step back from the current problem. Instead, they must develop new technologies to guarantee better business environment. So we encourage more solutions from those entities. For the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the procuratorate, they can also offer their own solutions. Before the end of this year, I hope we can already put in place such a digital platform. And we will keep improving the supervision and monitoring. And we must take solid steps forward. Since January the 1st, 2021, they will be in place. For the legal documents concerning the supervision and inspection in the legal sector, we will further regulate the system. Those documents must fully consider the call of this era. We have already talked about this issue. I know the personnel are quite worried about the situation because this issue is paramount. Particularly, they have already accumulated a lot of those documents waiting to be solved. I know that such documents have already been passed on since the Soviet Union period. So a lot of things are yet to be done. How can we eradicate the old-fashioned system and put in place some new regulations about inspection? That is a daunting task, but that is something we must go to. We must echo the call of these new times. Ladies and gentlemen, to develop new technologies, we must encourage the modernized infrastructure development. We must have full offerings of our options. As a large country, we must give full play to our potential. That is a very complex issue. We already have opened the Crimea Bridge. Such a bridge has made huge contributions, just like the others, and it is a very huge project. We have also built a hydropower plant in the region of Caucasus. For the Crimea Peninsula, the Crimea Bridge is very important to their development. We also have improved the infrastructure in some other regions. We will build 60 other airports. For example, in regions like Arubas, some other projects like the Siberia Railway and Amur Railway will be developed to improve the transportation situation, and the transportation capacity will be at least doubled. Those are the favorable conditions for their infrastructure development. For the entire Far Eastern area and Siberia, such projects will be paramount. And in September, we will further discuss how to develop the Far East area and what are the other conditions to tap into. For example, the ports, the railways. We will also discuss how to increase their appeal in tourism. For Russia, we have abundant historical and cultural and natural resources. For example, last year the World Cup was held in Russia. Those are very important events to improve Russia's appeal, and those would be beneficial for us to improve our tourism results. That's why we must further develop the facilities and infrastructure for tourism. This year, we will also build our digital platform for telecommunication facilities. For example, the storage conversion systems of those data, they will be the priorities this year. We will improve the high-speed network as well. For example, 5G technology. In telecommunication sector, 5G technology is also central. We have proposed our requirements in that regard to improve our telecommunication environment and system. Now I want to talk about the aviation sector. We have some very good projects. For example, to build one national aviation center. Some aviation designing centers and academies will be integrated together into this national center, and we will cultivate more researchers. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know now, the competition in the field of scientific research is getting ever fierce, and Russia must make breakthroughs in such researches, particularly those projects that matters to our national defense. I know it's not an easy thing. We must recover our past strengths, and we must also innovate. So we must coordinate. Some engineers and researchers, including young talents, have done a lot to those national defense projects. So I have full reasons to believe that right now, in the ultrasonic missiles, we have already finished the testing. It will greatly enhance our national defense capabilities. Such ultrasonic missile would be very important. Also, in terms of atomic bomb, and we have developed our capabilities.
Сегодня те кадры, знания, компетенции, материалы, которые мы получили при разработке оружия.
Our rockets based on such atomic energy project is already launched into the sky. So for our civil development, they will be very favorable. So such research capabilities and technology improvement will be better utilized for civil development. As to AI, we also have already established our national plan. We must become a leader in the international market of AI. For our future and for the future of the whole world, that is some decisive thing. We must also improve our scientific level, our infrastructure level.
В течение ближайших 20 лет он будет одним из самых мощных источников нейтронов в мире. Позволит проводить уникальные исследования в области физики.
We took about 20 years to build our big reactors. That is the most advanced reactor in the world. So that offers us an edge in terms of scientific research.
Современные научно-исследовательские суда. Они смогут работать во всех стратегических районах, включая арктические моря и Антарктику, вести изучение шельфа, природных богатств Мирового океана.
Our icebreakers also are at international level. Those icebreakers has made huge contributions to the exploration of the Arctic Pole and the navigation routes of the Arctic Pole. So we will keep combining the educational resources, and we will also ask the help of those enterprises to join us. In the next 3 years, we will establish more scientific and research centers. We will build 3 such centers this year. We need talents in those aspects in order to make breakthroughs. As to occupational education, we must improve the curriculum design of the teachers so that they can keep up with the era. In August this year, we will have a competition for the occupational education. I hope all of those interested people could get enrolled. Such contest will be crucial for the occupational education development. In 2022, we also plan to harness the power of some modernized facilities to improve the hardware of some occupational educational institutions. Over 20 such institutions will have advanced equipment, high technologies. The educational plan for high technology and cultural development will be improved to better improve the educational result for the next generation. And also in 2024, for the children with talents, we must have advanced education. I hope our entrepreneurs could take active measures to join us.
Профориентацию, но и получить практику на предприятиях, в научных центрах, на других площадках. И вообще хочу обратить внимание молодежи,
especially to cultivate the youngsters. They must have more opportunities to have practices in those enterprises. So cooperation between schools and enterprises will be the source of opportunities. I hope that our college graduates will all have such practice opportunities or internship opportunities. We can also hold some national contests to put those talented youngsters into the spotlight. And I sincerely encourage all of you to tap into those resources and execute our plans to bring about those talents. Those would be good preconditions for our national development. Distinguished comrades, Russia is now an independent country. So, for us, we are all aware about that. Russia will remain an independent country, or any country that loses its sovereignty. We cannot accept the loss of sovereignty. Sometimes we bump into difficulties when we are cooperating with the others. As we know, since we are dealing with Russia's diplomacy, we must fully consider our national sovereignty. In education and cultural cooperation with the international partners, we must be based on fairness and equality. So we must uphold such principles when we are working with others, including international organizations like United Nations or multinational organizations or countries like Belarus. In the fields of economy and other sectors, we must consider building a common market for the Eurasia continent to smooth away the cooperation in this region. Also, we must echo the Belt and Road Initiative proposed by China to align the Belt and Road Initiative with the Eurasia Economic Alliance. So our relationship with China will become the basis of the stable international cooperation to also safeguard the security of this region. We also must develop very good partnership and mutually beneficial cooperation with India and Japan. With Japan together, we already signed a treaty about peaceful development. With ASEAN, we also have very good cooperation. We are also partnering with some mainstream European countries to build such normal economic and political relationships. As we know, those European nations are quite willing to work with us, including the cooperation between enterprises, because it suits the common interests of both of us. One issue that draws our attention is the relationship between Russia and the U.S. For now, the U.S. has exited the treaty. So Russia has to take certain response measures. Many countries are cooperating in the fields of economic sector, but for that matter, the relationship between Russia and the U.S. is in stagnation. The U.S. accuses Russia with no grounds in order to find an excuse for exiting some important treaties. That is not a good thing, to be frank. It's not a righteous thing to do for the U.S. And also the U.S. violates against the treaty. And instead of holding themselves accountable, they have pointed the fingers at Russia. I do hope that the U.S. could fully realize their actions.
Сперва начали разработку и применение ракет средней дальности, присвоив им для отвода глаз наименование ракеты-мишени для целей ПРО. Затем приступили к развертыванию в Европе универсальных установок.
That I want to talk about is the anti-missile system. The US has placed their missiles, for example, the mid-range missiles. We have opposed such behaviors for over once. The US has violated against many treaties. This is the end of the live streaming. Thank you for watching.